Good morning.
Morning, Sue.
It's good to have you in studio. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Yeah. Before anything else, Janet will share a quote, our quote of the day, and maybe you can just tell us if it resonates with you or it means anything to you or if it stirs any emotion.
That's correct. And the quote for today is from Mahatma Gandhi, I think a name that we are all very, conversant about. The future depends on what you do today. That's the quote for today. The future depends on what you do today. How does that sit with you, Mr. Muturi, that the future depends on what you do today?
Completely pertinent to what we are doing today, not just as people, but even as a nation and around the world. I think it's a very appropriate quote for the day. What we do today has definitely a huge bearing on what happens in the future.
Right.
Yeah.
As we welcome you to this conversation, obviously it's been quite, I don't want to use the word dramatic, but number of weeks for you. One would say that you've seen it all, right? And then there's an abrupt exit. I feel like starting by asking, how are you doing today in light of everything that has happened over the last few days? How would you describe your state of mind, your approach, and how you're handling this exit?
Let me begin by saying maybe I would actually go slightly beyond the last few weeks or months, but say slightly over the last 8 months since my exit from the office of the Attorney General. And, as I used to tell many of my cabinet colleagues, after the 8th of August last year, is that I felt like I'm not applying myself as I used to, and always crack a joke and say, now I'm on lighter duties. I'm sure many of you recall some other leader one time who claimed that they had decided to seek to leave the cabinet to go and be assigned lighter duties. I felt similarly that I was on lighter duties for the last 7 or so months. And therefore, it has been quite interesting and not hectic at all. And therefore, even these last few weeks have been quite, for me, have been quite exciting. Not least because I felt that what I've been doing was good for me, good for the country. And therefore, I have always at all times been ready for whatever consequences.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to get into those consequences and what you've been doing and why the timing. But before that, let's hear from the president when he was speaking to a vernacular station and talking about, the fact that Justin Muturi, according to him, was absconding duty, etc. Let's hear from the president.
Sasa hapo katikati akagoma kuja katika baraza la mawaziri. Sasa mimi nataka nikuulize wewe, ni mimi nimemfuta kazi ama ni yeye alijivuta kazi? Sasa wewe ni waziri, baraza la mawaziri umeigomea. What am I supposed to do?
What am I supposed to do? I know you've spoken about it before, but uligomea baraza la mawaziri?
Sijagomea baraza la mawaziri. And I did not abscond, as the president seemed to imply. I don't consider at least what I did to be absconding duty. And maybe to give some context, on 3rd of January this year, I attended a burial of a son of my close friend and village mate, the former senator for Embu, Lene Kivuti. While at the service, the funeral service, my personal assistant brought to me an envelope and whispered to me that it contained the president's message of condolence to the family, since he also knows Lene Kivuti. When I received it, first of all, nobody had alerted me that anything like that was going to happen. And when I got to the funeral service, I found everybody was seated, including, among others, the former Deputy President, Rigiji, and several members of Parliament. I sat next to Lenny, and because somebody we have grown up together, so I whispered to him that this envelope you've seen contains a message of condolence from the President. How would you want me to handle it?
Yeah.
And Lenny told me, please, I think it's only fair that you read it out when the moment comes. I told him, okay. But because I know generally in our area, people don't misbehave in funeral ceremonies. So I took it as that. But when my time to go and read that message came, I was shocked. But even as I climbed the podium, I noticed from the back of the tent, because there were very many people in attendance, I noticed some uneasiness. But when I got to begin speaking, I placed the envelope aside, and I saw that seemed to lower down the tension which I noticed. I've been in public life for quite some time, so I could tell this. I think this
reading the room.
This envelope could be the cause of the tension. There's some little bit of tension that I noticed.
Yeah.
So I went on to give my personal condolence to Lenny, but I could still see there was some little bit of excitement in the course of giving my message, because I spoke soon after Kiraitu Murungi, who had challenged not just me personally, but government on the issue of abductions and extrajudicial killings. So obviously it was going to look very, very, very odd that I will not respond to that kind of challenge.
Right.
So when in responding, I said, yeah, I agree with you. That really it is not a very good thing, that we cannot put an end to these heinous acts. And we don't seem to know who it is that is doing it. But of course, I was constrained to comment further, since all along, since June, the events of June last year, whenever I tried to make inquiries about what was happening with regard to my son, I was told, please, that matter is under active police investigation. And therefore, it's not something that you can ask. And I'm saying this to us to put the record straight, because I've seen over some period people asking, why did it take you so long? Remember, I was a serving cabinet secretary, and besides that, a former speaker, a trained lawyer of many years standing. So when I was told, and I talked to the people that I involved, and they tell me the matter is still under active investigation.
The people involved in terms of matters abduction?
No. The people involved in police, security matters. Because I kept asking, I wanted to know, I was keen to know why it is that my son had been abducted. So I was always told it's under active investigation.
Just before we go into that active investigation bit, it would be very easy to say, because you became vocal, even if it's before you actually came out with a press statement, even as you were pushing quietly, it was after your son's abduction. But many sons have been abducted before. Why were you silent then? Because abductions are not a thing that have started. They didn't start in July 2024, that's for sure. And they didn't end with the previous regime, as we had been told would be the case when President Ruto came into power. So yeah, it does seem that it's only when it was your son that was abducted that it became a matter of concern for you now.
Yeah, let me say this. I sat as Attorney General in the National Security Council, and when those things, first time when they came up for some form of discussion, it was saying that it is left to the investigative agencies. Yes, and therefore
But you're the Attorney General. As a member of
cabinet, you are precluded, and also a member of the National Security Council, you are precluded from commenting, because after all, it is not a matter within your docket. Remember the issue.
But as Attorney General?
Yes.
As Attorney General, you are basically you're a holder of the Constitution, you're a duty bearer, and also someone who is required to enforce and enact the Constitution, and abductions are very much against that. So then how can we say that we've left that to the security services when you are the Attorney General, and extrajudicial killings, abductions, etc. are all against the fabric of our Constitution and the letter, not just the spirit of the law, but the letter of the law?
Let me say this, and again, just to explain, if you read the Constitution, the functions of the Attorney General are clearly spelled out in Article 156. Soon thereafter, following it closely is Article 157 that establishes the office of the DPP. If you read Article 157 closely, you'll find that the DPP is the office which has been given constitutional authority to direct the Inspector General of Police and all those people, including the DCI, can direct them to investigate any matter and report to him. The Attorney General is, remember after the 2010 Constitution, the office was split, and therefore the office of the Attorney General deals with the several matters, representing government in several matters. In fact, I've seen very many Kenyans confused and sometimes ask me why I'm not investigating. It is not, the office, the Attorney General is not vested with the authority to investigate.
You're still an advisor.
But the Attorney General, no.
Yes, you're an advisor. Please,
the Attorney General advises government. The Attorney General does not advise the DPP. It is very important. Remember, in that Article 157, it says that DPP is independent and is not subject to the direction or control of any person, body, or authority in exercising their functions. In fact, I can even refer to Kenyans. An attempt when I was fairly new in the office was made by some people. I'll be talking about that later. To try I think there was a kind of a trick. People read a letter for me to sign to advise the DPP. And the moment I received the draft, it was not, of course, through my then Solicitor General, I called him and asked him, what are you doing? This is causing constitutional friction in independent offices. Right. The moment you try to do that, you cause friction. The only opportunity available to the Attorney General with regard to matters of this nature is both at the cabinet level and at the National Security Council meetings.
Of which you can give advice.
Yes.
What did you advise? In the wake of everything that was happening, what were you advising the president? What were you advising at the national level? What was your advice at that time?
You know, when you meet in a meeting of that council, issues are raised, and generally people will discuss. The people in charge of the security sector will make a report. Then that's when you begin discussing it, and you can agree, please, this matter, and it is resolved that this matter requires urgent attention because it is giving the country a bad image. Remember, at the civil side, the Attorney General also, represents government in many international fora, and I can say here, I had actually just represented the government in committing that we will end enforced disappearances of persons at the United Nations, meeting here in LD in Gigiri, Nairobi. Right. So my advice goes up to there, and then you leave the operational aspects
of the security agencies to them.
Absolutely.
I can get that on paper.
And then they report saying, well, if it is to come to cabinet, they will report through the Ministry of Interior, not through the Attorney General.
I get that on paper, but then again, you said in your statement, you made a phone call to the president, who then called Nurdin Haji, and your son was released. So even if the security agencies operate independently, it means that clearly there's still some influence from the executive, and there's still influence from other parties. And you had tried making those calls yourself. So as much as you say the Attorney General only deals with civil matters, you are an advisor, and it seems that there's powers above the independence of these security agencies.
That almost muzzles. As you reflect on that, I think we do have that clip of you addressing the press. Let's run it and hear what you had to say.
When that happened to my son, I was not just a member of the cabinet, but a member of the National Security Council. Yeah? That is a security issue. It had never been discussed. Nobody, as I've said, in the security apparatus hierarchies, yeah? Nobody to date has ever come forward to tell me your son was taken in by whoever. But of course, I imagine, because it has been said it is not government, then we need to deal with those ones who are doing those things. So it's not possible for me to keep quiet merely because I sit in cabinet. And I explained that.
Yeah, that's when you are in government, and we'll get back to that statement a little bit later. But yeah, still to my earlier question, you made a call, according to your statement, to the president, who then called Nurdin Haji. This is after failed attempts of your own. So as much as you want to say that these security bodies operate independently, clearly that's not the truth, right?
In practice, I want to agree with what you've just said, but just to make a correction, I did not make a call to the president.
Oh, you went. You were at.
I actually went.
Okay, you went to see him.
And
okay.
the reason I went there, and I explained, I am very, very thorough in details.
The lawyer in you, yes. Meticulous.
I can even tell you at this hour, I did this. I tried to call the president the previous night. His phone did not go through. I actually, at about 3 a.m., sent him a text message. Because I kept the then IG, spoke to him twice. He didn't seem to know what was happening. And he was saying, those must be thugs. And I was telling him, no, the description does not fit thugs. From what I was told by Honorable Mwenje, it was not thugs. I tried to get Nurdin. He didn't answer. I tried to get Mohammed Amin. His phone did not go through on 2 or 3 occasions. But much later in that night, almost as in the morning, I spoke to his deputy, some James Onyango. That night, before midnight, I had spoken to P.S. Omolo twice. The next morning, I spoke to Professor Kindiki, and I told him, because by the time we spoke, I already gotten wheat, sufficient material. In fact, even during the night, when I was trying to get Kiprotich Mohammed, the head of anti-terror police unit, I couldn't get him. But from people close to him, I had almost gotten information, and I had gotten information that actually the people, because when Royal Media gave me the clip of the vehicle that abducted, it was very clear these are the vehicles used by the terror police unit when they are doing their work. Right. So, but besides that, besides what we could infer from the clip, people who had spoken to him had actually volunteered they called me. 3 people, different people. Then on the morning of Sunday, the next day, somebody known to me, but not high in the National Security Intelligence Service, called me through somebody else's phone, spoke to me through somebody else's phone, and told me don't beat about the bush. It is us who are holding your son. Now, when Kindiki was calling me, and I told him, no, please, just I explained to him all what the efforts had meant. He told me, no, I don't think. But I told him, please, just call Nudin and tell him to release my son. After about 10 minutes or so, and you find it, I put it in my statement. Kindiki calls me back and tells me, I've spoken to Nudin, but he has denied that he's holding your son. Ask him, Kindiki, how is it that the information I have is so incontrovertible that it's only you? And how is it that Nudin cannot pick my call? Yeah. We sit together in the National Security Council. What is wrong? There's something funny. And because I was getting a bit agitated and annoyed, because here I'm getting information, I have so much information, but the CS Interior, now Deputy President,
yes,
it just tells you the kind of people we're having now, how we related, that people can tell you lies and you sit together in the same body. That's when I saw the presidential choppers, and I knew, because somebody had told me that the president was in Nyandarua, and I told my friends with whom I was that, now guys, I'm not going to beat about the bush. I drove straight. Let me just go to State House, and went there. And contrary to what I've heard some people, some analysts, I think which I thought were lazy people, claim that I sat somewhere and overheard. I was standing. I mean, remember, President Ruto is not a stranger to me. Ruto came to me to look for me to join him in his coalition. I never went to him. So he's not the kind of person that I will speak to him when you are from where you are and where I am. No.
Yeah.
It was here.
Right.
So, and I tell him, it looks like you have not read my message, which I sent to you last night. It tells me, I'm sorry. In fact, I was not even with my phone. I left it here with my guys looking at it because they told me it collapsed. He called then one of the young people young men who were trying to fix his phone, and he asked the young man, is the phone okay? The young man replied to him, it is not quite okay. You can't receive messages up to now, but you can make a call.
Okay.
So he said, okay, later.
Yeah. He made
I told
a call.
him, just call Nudin. He calls him. I'm standing next to him. People are trying to suggest that.
Yes.
So I had what I put in my statement, and I would want President Ruto or Nudin Haji to come forward and contradict what I've said.
We're about to go into a break. So many questions based on that, just the state of security. You've been able to have access when millions of others don't, or thousands of others don't, and then why you still stayed, if something like that and happens of that nature, it compromises and questions the integrity of the entire system. Might have been a good opportunity to say, this is not the kind of place that I can stay respectfully after what's happened to my son, after what's happened to Kenyans. You stayed. We want to know why. So we're speaking to Justin Muturi, former Attorney General, former Public Service CS, and we're having that conversation with him. It's now 7:30. We'll come back after the break to continue that conversation on Fixing the Nation, one conversation at a time. You can also speak to us on social media. We'll be right back. You're watching us live on NTV. Janet Bogwa, Mariam Bishai. You're also listening to us on Nation FM. We're hosting former Attorney General and Public Service CS Justin Muturi. Just before the break, we spent some time trying to understand the abductions. His son was abducted. He tried to access information, trying to understand by Nudin Haji, no less, trying to understand what was happening, trying to get to the bottom of it. And he says, while standing right next to President William Ruto, he made a call, and after that, his son was freed, I believe. And the question I asked before the break is, after going through something so traumatic and tumultuous, why then stay in office? To what end? And maybe we'll start there. Why stay after all of that?
Good question. Thank you, Janet. I went through a lot of soul searching, and at a point asked, is it worth it? And after consulting a number of close friends, many advised that please stay put. Maybe there is a lot more you could be able to gather about what your administration is doing, and at an appropriate time, let the world know. And therefore, somebody would really have it. When the cabinet was dissolved on the 11th of July, remember the president farboed. If you remember his statement, he even was talking about the Attorney General of the cabinet. I called him, asked him, boss, what is wrong with you? There's no Attorney General of the cabinet. It's the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya. And I told him, you cannot dismiss the Attorney General under Section 12 of the Office of the Attorney General Act without setting up a tribunal, because if you read that section, it puts 5 grounds, and grounds can only be established through a semi or quasi-judicial process, namely a tribunal. In fact, now that the other day, and I have I have a lot of respect for my Muslim brothers and sisters, but I thought the way he said it the other day at the iftar dinner, it was so casual. In fact, I began wondering, do we have a...
When you're talking about endowment funds?
Yes. Okay. There is no Muslim, nothing like that called the Muslim Endowment Fund in the first instance. So it means that he did not consult anybody. He just rose up and spoke just like the way he's doing on top of vehicles, saying anything that...
I want to come back and say, okay, so you say that you sought counsel and you were encouraged to stay, and that by staying you'd be able to uncover. But is that really in the spirit of the interest of Kenyans? Because one might argue that would have been the right time to say, this is a broken system. I mean, everything you've just described, having to make several calls on an individual level for an issue that has affected hundreds of people, already it's a broken system. Why stay within there as opposed to saying, I'm stepping out because my integrity cannot let me stay within a system that's not serving the people of Kenya? It almost sounds like staying to uncover something it's a personal vendetta. And that supersedes, if a personal vendetta supersedes the interest of Kenyans, then that's also frightening. So why didn't you choose the route of saying, this is wrong, I don't believe that this government is running effectively and transparently, and I'm now going to step down?
I don't think whether one can describe it as vendetta. I did not have any vendetta against anybody. And to find out what exactly the problem is or had been, it was necessary at the time from close advice, which I considered and took. It was necessary that as long as it suited.
Were you not privy to abductions and extrajudicial killings before the abduction of your son? Because again, these are not things that are new to us. These are things that have happened in previous administrations, in the current administration. So are you saying that this was the first time that you came across genuinely, from someone who sat on the National Security Council, this was the first time you came across an abduction when it was your son?
No. But see, it must be understood that the docket that deals with criminal matters it does not reside with the Office of the Attorney General, and that anything to do with criminality would be reported even at cabinet level, even at the National Security Council level, would be reported through the CS Interior. But it had never been reported, other than discussing generally the events surrounding
But you were privy to.
Yeah. So if you're discussing that and you're in the national...
When you say privy, I'm a bit hesitant to respond, because privy, I don't know, maybe you could look at the exact meaning, knowing that there were abductions. Maybe perhaps that would be a better one.
So you knew that there were abductions?
Of course. It was public knowledge.
By the government? Security agencies?
Let me say this. it was never stated that it was by security agencies. In fact, other than the usual, political statements that we used to make during the campaigns, nobody ever disclosed that it was being done by the security agencies.
Not during campaigns, at the National Security Council level, at those high-level government.
It was never. Nothing like that was ever raised. And other than recently on that 31st, when the president himself disclosed to the nation and the world that he knew of a police squad that had been previously involved in the killings and dumping of bodies in Rivayala and the river, he himself, and which he said he disbanded.
Yeah, you just mentioned that you said you got a call. I know we're going back to this, but it's important to get clarification that more or less confirmed that it was actually security agencies that were behind the abduction of your son. Confirm that. You said that before the break.
Yes.
Okay, so you can now confirm, can you now confirm that security agencies were behind the abductions happening in Kenya?
I think it will not be rocket science for anybody to infer the same. And I didn't say that as much day before yesterday. That the fact that, because of the information that I had, that's why I was confident to tell the president, can you please call Nuruddin and tell him to release my son? And he called him, and he was released. I mean, do we need? We don't need a lot of other studies to really make the finding or the conclusion, as I did, that it's the security agencies that are involved in these things. And it's for that reason, Janet, that I've been consistently saying this matter should be discussed now at the cabinet level. If you read through my 3 letters, that has been my thread. This matter should be discussed at the cabinet level. And even on the 12th of January, when I made the first statement, I said this matter should be discussed openly so that we can find some lasting solution. There are many families, so many thousands or hundreds, who cannot reach the president. As I was lucky. I was privileged to be able to reach him. There are so many. In fact, I've met so many. It's very touching when you meet them and they give you their harrowing experiences. And that's why I've been calling for a judicial mechanism that everybody, let all these people, the relatives, because it's one thing to say that you have disbanded a squad, but what about the people who lost their loved ones?
From a legal perspective, how do we fix that? You are Attorney General, you're a trained attorney, lawyer. How do we make sure that there's justice for every victim of an abduction in Kenya, every family that has lost a loved one, realistically? My recommendation has been consistently that we need a judicial commission of inquiry. Hey, we've had inquiries. We've inquired and inquired and inquired, and we never implement whatever these commissions come up with.
Sorry, let me just say this: we have not had inquiries and inquiries
on many matters, not on abductions. I'm saying as Kenyans.
On this particular one, on this particular one, because let me tell you, this matter is not easy. We're talking about a matter of death. People have lost their loved ones. Yeah. Many are still grieving, and we just want to sweep it under the carpet. I think this is not the kind of thing that we can. The last major commission of inquiry that I remember is the one on Golden Back, which followed quick succession, the one of the man of the late Robert Uko. Yeah. So and you know. It was important to have those inquiries.
Right.
In this case, I am saying we've lost far too many young Kenyans. Yeah, and I remember the quote we began with. What we do today must have a bearing
on the future. I want to now move us forward. So that happened. You said after seeking counsel, you're going to stay in government. You're going to try and unearth perhaps what are some of the things that you believe Kenyans need to know. And then I know we started by running a clip of President Ruto speaking to the incompetence angle. So I think, is there then reason to believe that perhaps this affected your ability to be able to perform your duties effectively? Do you, that sense of fairly incompetent as a CS? I know it's not an easy question to answer, but were there elements where perhaps you were rusty or where you were not able to approach your office with effectiveness that then had the president say, he can't be here? Was your judgment clouded in any way?
Fortunately, he referred to the issue of incompetence with regard to my duties as Attorney General. And I've said, I believe the president's intention in making that accusation is to divert me from pursuing this issue of abductions and extrajudicial killings, because he wants me to begin defending myself. So it becomes a back and forth between him and I. I don't have to defend myself about that. The record is there for everybody to see. Yeah. When I got there, if I was to speak even for 1 minute, I discovered and we had committed ourselves in the manifesto that we would make the office, the state law office, independent. And I went and I did exactly that, proposed, and with the concurrence of Parliament, got an amendment to the Office of the Attorney General Act to remove the hiring, firing, discipline of State Council from the Public Service Commission to a body, just like the DPP's office has, a body, an advisory board, which is chaired by the Attorney General, and the Secretary being the Solicitor General. The President of the Law Society is there, Chairman of the Public Service Commission is there, the Chair or representative of Institute of Human Resource Management is there, and representative from the Judiciary, yeah, and I think 1 or 2 others, yeah. First of all, on the day we launched the 24th supplement in April of last year, which of the Kenya law, which was last launched in 1999 at Safari Park, the same William Ruto was commending me, full of praise about what I had been able to do, because he saw we were actualizing our manifesto.
Right.
But never mind that. And I think that's the area I don't want to go to, because I think that's where William Ruto wants to take me, so that I keep defending, try to defend myself. I think that my record is there for all to see. Right. And let me also say this, among other things, which I introduced, I said MOUs will not be used as a basis for entering into contracts, committing government, because many of the cases that government has been losing based on contracts have been because ministries were entering into all manner of MOUs. Right. And I insisted all MOUs must be brought to the Attorney General to approve, so that where you see it's going to be, this is binding, you tell them, no, this is not the way it's supposed to be done. Right. Of course, that became, I know, many of my colleagues in cabinet did not quite like that, but please, let me not go there, because that's where William Ruto wants to take me, right, so that I'm defending myself.
If you do. Let
me just, this issue of, it's a matter of human rights. It's a matter of us enforcing our constitution. It's a matter of
constitution. Did your relationship with the president? Did your relationship with President Ruto turn sour after the abduction of your son? You said he was praising you last year. So where did it begin to get tight between the two of you?
Let me say this. Around that time, around April, when I was still Attorney General, I actually, and he knows, William Ruto knows, even he used to say to me, when his relationship with Uhuru began going south, he would call me and ask me, JB, what is happening? What happened to my friend? What? In fact, let me disclose to the nation. In January 2020, because their relationship was getting so strained, I sought the intervention of the religious sector, and I had a breakfast meeting with Cardinal John Jue, and I pleaded with him to call other senior clergy of his stature and go and sit these two people down. So, because I was seeing it was getting bad. So even with regard to him, William Ruto and his former deputy, around that area, around the month of April of last year, I actually had tea with him. Now that he is the one who has begun this thing, by saying the things he said at Iftar and at Sagana State Lodge, I think I'm at liberty also to say.
Speak.
I approached him, I told him, I see there's something that is happening between you and your deputy. What is the problem? What is wrong? Why can't you people, because it's affecting, I think it's affecting the way, we will operate as a cabinet. Okay. Because we don't want to be seen to be accused of being pro this and anti the other.
I'm seeing a thread of convenience here. You joined William Ruto's bandwagon and all of this a bit late, very close to the election. Initially, you were a critic, you spoke out, but then very close to the election, okay, switching sides. Then there's abductions happening, then your son gets abducted, and then you speak out. I'm seeing a thread of you speak out or you switch sides when it's convenient for either your political career or your personal life.
Well, if it's the area of politics is a matter of interest, yeah? But on this matter, and I've already said maybe...
So political was convenience. That's before
politics. And that's a much longer story. Remember, I've just told you that between Ruto and Uhuru, I used to run and ask them what is happening. Whenever I sit with one, what is happening? What is the problem? But that's a very, very long story, and I think we can't finish it during this show. But and I've also alluded to the fact that. William Ruto, as then deputy president, came to see me as the leader of the Democratic Party to request that I join him. We had conversation in my party offices in Tigiri Ridge. I hope he has not forgotten. But he can say that again. There's that mark of incompetence, but I have details. We discussed. I also held discussions with my friend, the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta.
Right.
As you would know, Uhuru was then at that time, now with Raila.
Raila Odinga, yeah.
Yes. So I had to weigh which side to support, or to be with. And it's a long story. I'm sure, it will take us a very long time to go through that one. But let me say, I don't think whether, even if it is your son or your mother or your father, they are abducted, you will not speak out. Even if your father is 90, you would speak and defend to the hilt. So I think that I spoke because it touched me well. It had to begin somewhere. It had to begin somewhere because the rest was being handled. And of course, there's also the need to respect, the jurisdictional and operational independence of offices, not to be seen to be poking. And remember, the Attorney General's advice to government must always be in writing, and it must be sought. It is not one that is given on the streets,
right?
Or because the Attorney General wakes up one morning feeling that he needs to advise. If you fall in that trap, you'll find that you're writing to nobody, because people ask, who asked you for this? Like I said, Mariam, in my
Mariam.
Yes. Like I said in my earlier state comments, when my advice was sought, immediately cabinet was formed. Yeah. My advice was sought because several people. This lady who is advisor on gender, Monica Juma, the security advisor. David D, chairman of the President's and Council of Economic Advisors, yes. Hussein Mohammed, spokesperson. I don't know. And then Cleopas Malala. They all being head of public service.
Okay.
They all wanted to sit in cabinet. My advice was sought, and I did advise. I said, look, go to the Constitution, Article 152. You see the composition of cabinet. The only extra person from the 25 listed there, is Secretary to the Cabinet, who is clearly established in the Constitution. In fact, the head of public service, even to date, he sits in the cabinet meetings. But let me tell you, it is an illegality.
Okay.
Yes. So you give advice on need basis, and it's always, there are so many. And that's why the Office of the Attorney General, as a department, a division actually, known as Legal Advisory and Research Division. Yeah, whose work is just to research, and then in consultation with other divisions, because the advice will be from all corners and touching on each and everything.
We'll continue to cover that. Do we have time? I just want to check with the team whether we're going into a break, because we usually go into a break at 3 minutes to, because we want to understand your parties, which officially issued a termination from Kenya Kwanza, and before that termination was issued, whether you regret in the first place being part of the Kenya Kwanza coalition.
Well, my position has always been, I always loved serving the people of this republic. And whenever I feel that I could be of use, I've always offered myself. Unfortunately, I did not even influence the decision of the party. Remember, upon being appointed as a state officer, you actually, even prior to being appointed, to assuming office as a state officer, you must not hold an office in a political party, Article 772 of the Constitution. So I had already resigned as the party leader of the Democratic Party and never attended any of its meetings, because then it would be saying that I am participating in party politics. When did you resign? I resigned before I assumed the office of Attorney General. Okay. Yeah. Actually, even before I went for vetting. Yes. Okay, we need to go to a break. Right. We're still going to come back with Justin Muturi, former Attorney General, Public Service CS. There's still a lot of ground to cover. True. Yeah, so he'll be with us in the next hour, talking about everything from the conversation we've just started on party politics, what's next, and even his thoughts on the ongoing tour of the Mount Kenya region by President William Ruto. You're watching Fixing the Nation on NTV, and you're listening on Nation FM and across our digital platforms. It's about 2 minutes to, 8 a.m. We'll be right back. Mariam Bishar, Janet Mbogwa, keep it here. We'll be back after the break. And of course, we're in studio conversating with Justin Muturi, former Cabinet Secretary for Public Service and Attorney General as well, speaking matters, abductions, governance, and much, much more. But before that, let's get into our news fix and see what the NTV newsroom has been tracking. Absolutely. Stima Sacco, that's one of the stories we're tracking for you. It's set to launch its 2025-2029 strategic plan today. It'll look to see the specific measures in the direction on critical aspects such as sustainable growth, sound governance, cooperative principles, and more. There's also likely to be guiding pointers on pillars such as business growth, member value creation, and capital financial sustainability. The chief guest is Cooperatives and MSME Development Cabinet Secretary Wycliffe Oparanya. Right. Okay, that's what we're following right now. Definitely something to have a look at. I wanted to get back with a few questions that we had from our fixers on X as well as YouTube, starting with Papa Mark Makuda, who's asking, would you join Ruto's camp in the event Ruto took heed of your demands? I don't know if we'd go one by one or zote. Tuanze na hapo. Would you join Ruto's camp in the event that Ruto took heed of your demands? Which demands? For example, dealing with the issue of abductions in the judicial way you've given us, if that was something that they looked into. No, I think in my mind is made up. Okay. Yeah, I think I've had enough of it. And let me say, among other things, one thing I told William Ruto, and which unfortunately he refused to tell Kenyans when he was talking about me telling him this or the other. When he offered me the position of Attorney General, I turned it down.
Why?
That was before. And I told him, well, I've been Speaker for 10 years. It's too much reading, because, the Speaker has to read through every committee report to approve it for tabling. So this is too much. So I told him, I just want to be in the cabinet, whatever ministry. I did not choose. And at first we left it at that. 2-3 days later, my friend then he had just become Speaker, succeeding me, Moses Masika Wetangula, calls me. We meet somewhere in Karen, in some hotel one evening, and usual way, he say we are going to do hand-to-mouth business, and he tells me, I've been sent by the president to plead with you to accept the position of Attorney General. And I told Moses, no. I've already told him. And he tells me, no. He told me to come and plead with you as a friend, classmate, roommate. I mean, because Moses and I have come a long way. I told him, my reservation is one. The way you know me, I'm a stickler to the law. And I just fear taking up a job where I will not be able to exercise my freedom to interpret the law as I best know how. And but I told him anyway. But that's my fear. But I didn't tell him to go and tell him that. A day or two later, William calls me. We are in State House and is eager to announce his cabinet. So we have some general meeting with several other, later cabinet colleagues. Then, as we finish, he says, JB, I have not finished with you. So we go into the office, the inner office. And, we go, we sit down for a more cup of tea, because usually that's one thing I think William is very generous with, tea. So we having another cup of tea, and he tells me, JB, I've not finished with you. I say, why? And he told me, I'm pleading with you to take the job of Attorney General. I told him, you know what, I've told you, I give you my reasons. I don't want to go to, to go do another 10 years or 5 years of just into books again. I want to relax a bit, because I know ministers, the ministers usually don't have, they don't have to do a lot of reading. And I know that, except maybe the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury, who has no option but to read a lot, just like the Attorney General. So he told me, JB, I have very many lawyer friends, but it is you I want. This is the time now I decided, let me tell William the truth. I told him, the problem I have is, you know me to be a stickler to the law. And taking up this job, and then perhaps one day you want to do things in a particular way which the law does not allow, I will have problems. And that's why I'm actually reluctant to take this job. It's not about the reading. Then he told me, JB, that's the reason why I want you to take up the job.
To challenge that. Let's continue. We don't want to interrupt your trail of thinking, but still, Mike, the one on YouTube says, Honorable Muturi, the problem started when you allowed yourself to work with Ruto. During Uhuru's time, your leadership was top-notch. So again, just speaking to what our community of fixers is implying is that the trouble started when you allowed yourself to work with President William Ruto. So you can speak to that. You mentioned it briefly, but the feeling here, and this is from some of the audience, is that is where the problem started.
Maybe they are right, because if you look at my statement of 12th of January, I actually I allude to that when I say that I joined Kenya Kwanza against the wishes of many of my close political friends at that time, who still remain close to me. But there were some very, very fundamental differences which had arisen, which made it impossible for me to join the other side. But since those other people have not gone public, like William has, and I just wish it to remain that there were fundamental differences that came, and of course, William, even though I used to criticize some of the things that he was saying, because William campaigned for the longest time. You can see even now he's campaigning for 2027, but cheating everybody that he is doing development tour. But that is his nature.
Yeah,
that is his nature.
We'll come to that. I think it's important that we come to the.
But I want to agree with the viewer.
With the viewer.
Yes.
Sorry, before we read that statement, did you mention something about compromising a legal process? When you said that is why the president told you that is exactly why I want you to be the Attorney General.
Yes.
Complete that trail of thought. What were you alluding to?
I was alluding to the fact that as Attorney General, there will come situations. In fact, he himself, during that conversation, told me, JB, this is going to be it's going to be quite a heavy responsibility, because I know virtually every cabinet secretary and government ministry will not get into certain legal abiding arrangements, especially where they are of monetary value beyond 5 billion shillings, because he knows that. William is very good at he understands procurement matters, and no wonder. But that's discussion for another day.
Discussion for today. We can discuss it today. We still have an hour. No wonder.
No wonder. First thing he told me, I think he wanted me. I don't know whether he was trying to entice me. That in any government contract be above 5 billion, it must be approved by the AG.
That was an enticement.
I thought he thought it was going to be an enticement. But I told him, and that's why I told him, my worry is you should allow me to exercise my freedom. And because whether we like it or not, it is not just the Attorney General as a person. It is an office. And I really must give credit to the men and women who work in the state law office. Many of them have devoted their lives to serving the nation. And that's why, you can imagine people doing just research, legal, advisory, and research work. And it's a lot of work. But, when you sit with them, you really enjoy it. So I was telling him, please, because I know as a trained lawyer, I know the work of the Attorney General. And for me, to say that I had not been in practice, what practice? The Constitution does not talk about that. It talks about experience. 15 years as a judge, or a legal scholar, distinguished legal scholar, or any other such similar qualification or experience. Speaker, served in the judiciary for more than 15 years. I'm more than qualified. But, for him, according to what he told me at that time, it is because he knew that I'm a stickler. And it is not something that I was beginning. It is something we had done even as a speaker. He knew I had a knack for. Because particularly talking about what the Constitution requires to be done, I had some arguments with him when they first began in their first term with Uhuru. And today I'm surprised, William took a 360-degree about turn. Many of you could remember a time I tried to introduce, because see, Kenyans were used to the old system of ministers answering questions on the floor of the House because we were also members of Parliament. Now, when we came in the 11th Parliament, it was a totally new structure. Ministers are not members of Parliament, yet there's a constitutional provision, Article 125, that says Parliament or any of its committees, either House of Parliament or any of its committees, can summon any person to appear before it to give information or evidence. And I reasoned, Parliament sits in plenary. If it's summoning any person, cabinet secretary, where would that? Well, it has to happen in the plenary, isn't it?
Right.
So I explained to him and then President Uhuru, and they agreed. Yes. Can you? Then they asked me to go and see how we can change the standing orders. And I called the leadership of the House at that time. We went through systems, sent teams to go to the US, others to Brazil, others to Senegal, others to France, to see how presidential systems work. And especially because in the context of Africa, a developing country, the issue of question and answer, so that, you know, our members of parliament will be seen to be representing the concerns of their people. So when I came up with that new model, which they allowed me to go and do, then I had to call the CSs in parliament, one morning breakfast. And those who had been politicians like Charity Ngilu really liked that opportunity to come and explain themselves on the floor of the House. By the time I went back to my office, I found William had called. He was then deputy president. He had called me more than 10 times. So I went, I called him. He said, Bill, what is happening? He tells me, JB, you have committed a constitutional coup. I said, what? I told him, let me just come and explain to you.
Okay.
I walked across to Harambee Annex. I was speaker. At that particular time, actually, the president was out of the country. So I go and explain to him. Oh, he says, no, you can't do that. You cannot. You've been holding, he said, what I was doing there, that breakfast meeting, I've been holding a cabinet meeting. I told him, no. In fact, I laughed. I told him, no. I thought I explained to you. You people are the ones who told me to go do this. So what we are doing this morning, and that's why even the media was there actually. If you check through your records, you will see that you are there in that meeting. I explained to him this is what we are doing. I was just trying to tell them because some of the CSs you have come from the private sector, and it's only fair that we acclimatize them because you and the president have been complaining that they are being called to parliament too often and too frequently. They have no time to work.
To carry out
so we are trying to work to get a middle ground so that whenever there are concerns, members have questions they want, they will forward them through this process. We'll forward the questions to the ministries and we'll set the days when they will come and times so that they are not called the next day. Oh, he says, no. Okay, I said, that's okay. When he was declared the winner, and after the Supreme Court decision, on the day he was meeting the UDM, because this party from Mandera, one of the current senator, when they came to meet him at Karen, he had not left Karen. In the process of saying how we are going to work, what, and because I had also began revisiting that issue, and telling him you're going to find it very difficult working without an opportunity for ministers to appear before Parliament to explain both to parliamentarians and to Kenyans what they are doing.
Okay.
And he never told me that he found it useful, but when he was addressing this, the members of Parliament and the other leaders from Mandela UDM party, because we were already coming to defect, I was shocked. He explained that same thing which I had told him, which he had opposed, I think, in 2013.
Right.
So I started saying, oh, okay. So even as I was refusing,
that was what was at the back of your mind.
This guy, he changes very quickly. But anyway, the question you asked me, Janet, was the viewer is whether I would consider joining William.
Yes.
No. It's not.
You've categorically called him a liar, is what we're saying.
Yeah, and I think William generally, his DNA is one that has such disdain for institutions. He doesn't think much about any institution or other people.
Mariam, I want you to come in. I just want to ask something before I forget, and it's almost alluding to what he said. And by the way, there's quite a lot of ground to cover and a lot of feedback coming in, so we'll try our best to do this. In the previous hour, you said that you wanted to go back in to try and establish, I don't know whether you alluded to the plans of this government or what this government was doing or what the president was doing. Is it a foreshadowing of sorts? Is there something that we need to be cognizant or aware of as the people of Kenya that you feel the government of Kenya is doing or planning to do or planning to roll out? You established, I went back because I wanted to understand what's happening in this government. So what is happening?
Well, for the purpose of going back, remember, at that time, I had also been a casualty. I've been a casualty in that my son had been a victim of abduction, and then I was also being told that the matter was under investigation, active investigation. So when by the way, I need to make this clear. When William purported to dismiss me on the 11th alongside the rest of the cabinet, when he called me, I told him, you can't do it. You can't do it this way. I was explaining. I told him, but since I can see you have a problem with this, and already some Kenyans had gone to court. That is some active fellow from Nakuru had gone to court. So there's a medical
doctor. Yes, he's very litigious.
He's very litigious, yes. So, and looking and seeing the petition, looking at it, he had actually named me as a party, but I never joined. I never made any reply, any pleading in that petition because I didn't think it was necessary, and I didn't even want to defend the situation that I should go back as Attorney General. So, and that's why I called, when we called the president, I told him, you know what, since you appear to have problems with me, because you ought, the worst bit is on 10th of July, at about between 10 and 11, I was with William Ruto in his office, and I was trying to advise him about something touching on the Lapset corridor. And in my presence, he called Kipchumba Murkomen and told him, please, can you look for JB? Yes, useful information that you can discuss about this matter, which is pending before you. That is 10th of July. 11th, I left because it has never been my habit, both during President Uhuru's time and even during William Ruto's time, for me to hang around the State House. Like I see, many of cabinet colleagues have a habit, they want to go and have tea there. And I don't have that time, and I find it useless, and I can't just go to hang out there to have a cup of tea and just do some little gossip. I don't have the time. It has never been my way of doing things. Even when my friend Uhuru Kenyatta was president, I would never. In fact, Uhuru Kenyatta, almost invariably, you would have to call me. Are you free? Can you pass by? Or I would call him when there's something official and tell him, no, please, you must be available to do this, mainly to assent to bills. Because you never see me hanging around there. So anyway, it was on the issue of...
no, just foreshadowing, very, very briefly.
Yeah. No, well, just to find out what was what was happening.
Okay.
But I realized that these 7 months, 18 days that I've served as a CS, I realized that I could see I was a rank outsider. Yeah.
Why though?
Because you can always see the way you talk to people, and the way they just shake your hand and move on quickly. Then I realized that I'm actually in the wrong place.
Right. Your relationship with Rigiji, did it have anything to do with that?
No. Rigiji, as deputy president and the chairman of the cabinet committee, during my tenure as Attorney General, we would meet quite frequently, officially in his place, because the AG was was a permanent member of all committees. So I would always meet with him, but because at that time, in the initial stages, I was still doing a lot of UDA work. And whenever you'd see, they're just discussing about UDA. In fact, I remember one time they talked about members of cabinet contributing to the kitty of the party. I looked at them. I looked at Alfred Mutua. I noticed he didn't mind that. I looked at Musalia. I could see he was also saying nothing. And because the announcement was made by Kindiki, and then Rigiji was amplifying, I told them, but not all of us belong to your party.
Okay.
So, I have no issue with Rigiji. He's my friend because we were together in the same coalition.
But that friendship, do you think it soured things on now the other end with you, with the president?
No. Because by the way, I don't think whether we have even had any social engagement outside of office. No.
Okay.
When we saw things beginning to go sour, the former minister for CS for Education, Ezekiel Machogu, called me one day after a committee meeting. He called me, he called Owalo, he called Muturi. I told me, can we go and find out from the DP, what is this we are seeing between, that was around May, between him and the president. It looks like the relationship is not good. Right. I told him, no, it is true. And I even told Machogu, by the way, I've even discussed it with the president myself, tried to find out what is the issue. That's the only time I remember we had a meeting, and we were that number, the number of the people have named.
You've named, yeah.
But then, when we 2 or 3 days later, I don't know what meeting there was at State House, and I was going somewhere else, but I went. And when I got there, I found Muturi very scared and Owalo, and they told me that they had been confronted by Duale, and he asked them what it is they were doing with that Mukora.
The Mukora being?
Rigiji.
Okay.
And he was referring, according to them, he was referring to that meeting we had, which was at the instigation or proposal of Ezekiel Machogu.
Right.
So, and Ezekiel also came, and Wallo, they all came. I told them, okay, the best thing, let's go and tell the president, explain to the president what it is we're discussing, because when you see Duale raising those issues, and he's one of those people who likes hanging around State House a lot, he might go and report the wrong thing.
Right.
Maybe I think he had already reported actually.
At that time.
So we went, and after the official meeting that was there, we went to the president, and I think I was dashing to some place, I don't know what meeting, at the Kenya School of Government. But that was still, when I was still AG. I went and we explained, I told the president, no, we did this. Ezekiel called me, just like as I've explained.
Yes.
We went to find out. And what did he say? I told Machogu explain. He just started saying he feels that he's being sidelined, things like this. And so we thought you could intervene yourself. And me, I excused myself. That was, I think, almost 2 months thereafter, we were fired.
Okay. We're going into a break. Again, so much ground to cover. I know we may not be able to take feedback after the break, so very quickly, we have some feedback on YouTube. Jeremy Mutuma asked JB if he will vie from Better North MP by-election. That's one. Kelvin Bogwa, Muturi deserves a high position in this country. Somebody else is saying, my prince, in your own words, JB, was Ruto the right person to take over from Uhuru Kenyatta? Evans Kimurgo Yegon, enjoying the conversation. Even though JB comes from my constituency, I can say we people of Mbeere North have benefited, or don't feel like we've benefited from him when he was in power. And somebody else, Rahemtullah Omar, would he consider running as presidential candidate as he has served in all three arms of government? Okay, so a lot of feedback, a lot of questions, a lot of thoughts there. We'll see whether he'll be able to take on some of them. But just in case we're not able to send these questions to him after the break, there is your feedback from YouTube. Thank you so much, Fixers. Orendo, Jacob, KE, the conversation is nice. Thank you to our Fixers for joining the conversation. Keep sharing your comments and questions. We'll be back with Justin Muturi. A lot of ground to cover in 30 minutes. We'll try our best with Mariam. Thank you for staying with Fixing the Nation. One conversation at a time right here on NTV and Nation FM. We'll be back right after this break. It is now 8:30.
As we get back into our conversation with Justin Muturi, former Attorney General and, of course, Cabinet Secretary for the Public Service, I wanted to share some of your questions from YouTube, X, etc. A lot of people asking about vying for Embu Governor. That's Milton Karatai. Will Muturi vie for Embu Governor seat 2027? And it's been repeated several times. Brian Atonya says, JB is really amazing to listen to. He truly knows the president's character. Give us a book about this experience. There's a question I also wanted to tie into similar to the question of vying for the Embu gubernatorial seat, knowing everything that you know, is William Ruto the right person to be president? Maybe you can start there, then work backwards to Embu gubernatorial.
Well, I think with the experience that I've gained working with William Ruto this last, in the executive, which was my desire, when after serving as Speaker for 10 years, a Member of Parliament, 2 terms, judiciary, I felt I wanted to be somewhere to serve in the National Executive. I think William Ruto is a person with two personalities. The William Ruto that presents himself to the public is a completely different character from the one that sits behind in the office and crafts stuff. I think that kind of person is quite a dangerous character. I think William Ruto is actually unfit for the position of President of the Republic of Kenya. I have come sadly to that conclusion. And I have no bitterness. For me, I just feel my own assessment. When I watch William Ruto sometimes talking to members of cabinet, and to see him say, I do not want to see corruption in my government. Then I start wondering, who is this talking? And I'm sure we will have occasion to discuss a lot of...
Is he corrupt?
Who?
William Ruto.
I think, I don't know.
But if you see him talking about corruption, you're like, who is this talking about corruption? Is it because he's corrupt?
I have so many examples.
Not an example, but is he corrupt? Examples aside.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Very. Yes, irredeemably.
Okay.
Corrupt.
One example you can walk us through. I know you've told us that there's many. Just a.
I don't want to give you the obvious ones about the Adanis, because I have some background about it. He's the one who's clearly behind it, and I know this because when his advisor Adan Mohamed invited me to attend the COP28 in Dubai in 2023, he gave me a lot of information which ended up with the Adani deal about the airport specifically. Okay. Even during that same time, some Russian oligarchs who had offered to invest $1 billion here in Kenya. And again, it came from Adan Mohamed. In fact, I have even staff telling me that an NGO I go and check. If there's no, I said the NGO council says we don't have any such
no
company.
Such thing is registered.
Then on the day we were coming from India, after that COP28, we flew to India for state visit, blah, blah. I am landing on my way back because Guru, this guy of Defki, everywhere you see Ruto around him. It's one of the Guptas. When Guru told me during breakfast on the day we were leaving Delhi, that that plane of the president is not good. I've chatted another one for him. As we are going direct, get an executive jet. I've gotten him. So I land in Dubai. Ruto is calling me. Those people, those Russians want you. They are there. They are in Dubai. They are waiting. You sign in. I said, I'm just at the airport and I'm on transit. I am not leaving the airport.
Right.
He said, no, but they are there. Your people, your staff have already worked on the document. I said, no, I will need to go and review it in office.
This document being the deal? The
deal. They were purporting to give a grant of $1 billion to grow allegedly 3 billion trees to answer 15 billion. William Ruto, whenever he comes up with a program, it's for money making. For him, it's for money making. Now, I come and tell them, they bring me an MOU. I tell them, and I remember I spoke about the MOUs.
Yes.
I told them, it came from the Minister of Environment, which they pushed through. I tell them this thing, the $1 billion can only be by way of a grant, but it cannot come directly to the ministry because under the PFM Act, Section 47, it can only go through the National Treasury. They are trying to avoid that money going to the National Treasury, and it's money coming from abroad.
Right.
And
you're being asked to sign in an airport.
I'm being told to sign at Dubai airport, and there's William Ruto calling me directly. I'm telling you. But anyway, maybe I could. Let me say this.
No, finish.
Let me say this. I think it's a very unfortunate situation for the country that we have William Ruto sitting in the office as president of Kenya. And we have too many examples to give. And
you knew this before you were. Did you know this before you were fired? Wouldn't this information have been helpful to the people of Kenya if we knew it before?
Like I said, I am a gentleman. I was going to, in fact, somebody talked about a book. It's a book, the book is already in the works. I started immediately I left, actually just before I left Parliament as Speaker. That's when I began working on it. Then now that we went into campaigns, I stopped a bit, and then I said, why don't I just wait and finish my experience in the cabinet
before you do an expose?
No,
it's a book
to give this so that the book also includes my experience in the cabinet.
It would be very important for people in cabinet to start revealing these controversies before they are reshuffled or fired.
Yeah.
Because
it feels like you're holding ransom information that is playing with the lives of Kenyans.
Let me say this, Janet, that's a very, very correct observation, because William Ruto begins with you slowly, and then he begins to appear like, first of all, I think I want to say William Ruto is a true example of Daniel Moi. And William Ruto is no wonder, actually, he campaigned against the current constitution, because I think he really he relishes a situation where we could go to that imperial presidency.
Right. He said he has a disdain for institutions.
He has disdain for institutions, and that's why he wants to push everything, even in cabinet. If you want to know something where he has an interest, a CS will make a presentation, and then William Ruto will take over. Say, this one is good. He begins now to explain, making sure that there is no dissent, and he starts telling you, the moment I arrive before you and ward, then he begins that slowly he's instilling fear. Today, and I know that's the situation. he makes it impossible for you to have a meaningful discussion. In fact, people enjoy going for cabinet committee meetings, the ones chaired by the deputy president, both Rigathi and Kindiki, because there you are able to speak your mind about any issue that is presented. But before William Ruto, you just have to know he has expressed his position, and he's looking at you. He's making suggestions. The look he gives you tells you on this one.
He has interest.
You have no option but to.
He's holding the cabinet hostage. Ransom.
Yeah.
But then
it is hostage.
But you said you're a stickler for the law.
Yeah.
So he also held you hostage.
Fortunately, the advisory opinions of the Attorney General are never the subject of discussion at cabinet, because usually it is line ministries who will seek advice. Where even when they are preparing cabinet papers, the final person signatory is always the Attorney General. So they will come and complain that this paper is not ready. It's at the Attorney General, and I say, yeah, we are reviewing it because we don't want to approve things which could turn out legally costly to the country.
I mean, in the sense that he could call you at an airport, tell you, these guys are here, you need to sign XYZ. That's...
Fortunately, he could call that, did I sign?
He could call, but he couldn't make you.
No, not me. Did I sign the Adani thing?
Do you think that's why
I refused to sign the very explosive. The Auditor General is going to come up with a report on Arol, Kimwarel, and Itare dams, because it's only Itare dam where those Italian contractors are done 26%. Arol, they contract those Italians, and they were paying billions. They only put in a container. In Kimwarel, nothing has ever happened, because even the report that came, it has a faults underneath. You can't do it. We can't do the dam there. So remember, he has been doing those things, meetings with the Italian Prime Minister, the President. On 3 occasions, I was invited to accompany the team, but I had read the files, and I just felt, no, it's not possible. And then Head of Public Service writes to me a letter that the delegation which is going to go there is going to be led by Adil Kawanja, which is one of those very close friends of the president, the chairman of Safaricom Limited, and then the then DPP, Nurdin Haji, and the former Solicitor General. I assigned some other state councils. I said, what is this? But the country is losing, or has lost actually, over 38 billion shillings. And they still, later they wanted me to sign. I said, I can't. I cannot append my signature, not on this. Can you substantiate all of these allegations that you're making? Fortunately, I have them on record. You have paper trail? I have paper trail. You know, I knew what I was doing, contrary to what William Ruto may have thought. I am not the kind of person that I keep records, and I have all of them. In fact, on soft. Okay. As Gabi is saying here, invite him another time, because I can't even work. I'm just listening to him explain things. We have about 10 minutes. Mariam, there was a question about... Oh, sorry, you're going to ask something. No, it's just the level of rot that you're exposing is quite high level. It's deep-rooted, deep-seated. Some people would be, you are privy to it. It's only now from the outside that it's a problem. Yeah, he said it's because he's a gentleman. Yes, and you said it's because you're a gentleman, but it's hard not to question. Yeah. But you know, like now that one, Arol. Yeah. You know, it is so obvious the Auditor General is going to find out. That's the appropriate office. Yes. But because I'm sure the Auditor General is going to ask, what was the opinion of the Attorney General? But were you also, didn't you advise around taxes and SHA? Were you part of, in a sense, the rot that you're exposing? Let me tell you about this, not just SHA, the 4 laws. When the cabinet memo was brought to us, one morning we were in Kakamega State Lodge for a cabinet meeting by Nakumicha. She brought me, like this. I told her, what is this? I cannot sign a CAB memo just like this. This is not the way to go about it. She told me, CS National Treasurer has already signed. I said, it doesn't matter. She ran to the president, who was then with his deputy Rigiji at Kakamega State Lodge. Then they called me, and I go and said, I tell them, we cannot do cabinet memos this way. The cabinet, even the cabinet secretary, even the AG, it's not just the AG, it is the office. There are people, and I told you, various departments who have to check through. And it's a lot of consultation. Occasionally, you will sit about 3, 4, 5 people, and I want to know, why did you arrive at this? Why did you yourself, why is it you prefer this? So that we come up with sound legal advice. Now, I'm told, sign. So when she went and reported the president and his deputy, I told them, no, you know what? I can't sign. The president played with me, he told me, JB, we promised people universal health coverage, what. I said, yeah, I am sympathetic to that, because for me, it's good for the citizens of this country. But I told him, this procedure is not right. And besides, I've seen something that purports to be draft bills. If I am going to agree to sign the CAB memo, these draft bills must be forwarded to me as Attorney General to review them with clear drafting instructions as what it is each bill hopes to achieve. That's 2 weeks ago. When this is the process of interviewing chairperson for the IEBC, there's a lady who actually admitted. She's called, she said her name, Wajiko Manegene, one of the candidates. She admitted, you can check, that she says among the consultants she has done with the government, is that she is part of the team that drafted the health laws. And she was asked, then you drafted? She said, yes. And after that, where did you take them? We took them to Parliament. Took this, for me, I think it came as a surprise, because I was going to I was still going to reveal to the world that I never took part. But she actually did it for me. That I kept telling people, those bills did not come through the AG's office. Because remember, even the Council of Governors had a lot of issues with them. And that also some of the things I was pointing out to the president and his deputy then at Kakamega.
Is this evidence you're willing to share?
Yeah.
About the not
about some of the several views you've held.
Yeah.
And any of the allegations, you can share them with us.
Like which one? Now that one, that one, I don't even have to, because
some of it, like the Kakamega one, for example. Can you share that?
You see that one? It is those bills. Okay. They never came through the office of the Attorney General. And we have a fully fledged legislative drafting department of highly competent Kenyans. Some of them 20, 30 years experience in legislative drafting. Very, very highly regarded even within the Commonwealth. But people want to bypass that because of, of course, partisan vested interests. No wonder. Later we come to hear about 104 billion project.
Are there people in cabinet who share the same views that you share, and they're currently in cabinet right now?
I don't know.
You must know.
Many of them are very timid. They will not want to. They don't want to speak. In fact, some of them don't want to pick my calls, even on WhatsApp. They are too scared. Many of the cabinet secretaries who are there, they don't want to pick my calls even on WhatsApp. They are too scared that they may be found to have spoken to me. And I know some others who are telling me, please, just get somebody to call.
On your behalf.
On your behalf, then we can talk on the other. So what does that tell you? William Ruto has instilled such fear in the entire cabinet that people don't want to speak. And it is live and let live. You asked me the question. Somebody asked me whether I want to run for position of Embu governor. First of all, the other one of member of parliament for Mbeere North. Certainly, I think that's a person who has not really followed me, because having been speaker, I think in fairness, it would be wrong for me to go back as a member of parliament to the same house that I presided over for 10 years. So please, just leave me out of it. I have said since 2017 that I am not interested in the position of governor of Embu County. And I hope now this should put the matter to rest. Some of the bloggers from the president have been trying to push that narrative that I'm trying to create room to run for office of governor of Embu.
Right.
No, not at all.
There's Ruto being taken now into the fold of government. How do you feel about that? I
don't have a problem with that, because Ruto is I'm the one who has brought him up. You know, he started quite early, immediately after university in 2002. He ran for councillor, and since then I've known him. But he used to be quite violent earlier on when he was supporting somebody else. In fact, at one time he even attempted to strike me, except that I think he was a bit scared. But later, again, Ruto actually was given to me by William Ruto, because William Ruto did not want them to contest, to have a fight with Jagagua, the then sitting member of parliament, who was already UDA favorite candidate by Ruto. And since Ruto is also Ruto's friend since the days of UDM, URP, so Ruto is the one. On a day I was going for a meeting in Odaya during the times I was going around. Remember, I also had expressed interest to vie for president. He called me when I was on my way to the meeting in Odaya and told me, please, JB, if we can avoid, since we have already agreed that we'll still team, we'll be together, why don't you just give them, you give this guy your party ticket so that we avoid a fallout after the UDA nominations. I told him, it's okay, just send him to me. I know him, he's my friend. So that's how, and then I also offered to assist Ruto, just like I sponsored him to run for Senator of Embu in 2017. Right. So I don't have a problem with Ruto becoming CS. It's okay. And like I said, I think, for me, these positions should not be personalized. And for me, my interest is to serve the people in whichever capacity.
Just as we finish, who would you support today if we were holding elections, aside from, of course, if it's you on the ballot? That's one. Actually, just begin with that one before then the last one.
Who would I support?
Yes, on the ballot if we were holding elections today.
Where?
Kenya. What do you, presidential? Oh, presidential, yes. Presidential.
Myself, I would support myself.
Yes, aside from yourself.
Aside from yourself.
No.
There's no one else.
I would support myself. The others would discuss. But
would you team up?
I'm ready to team up with anybody who also wants to serve this country honestly.
Okay.
And first of all, somebody who is committed to institutional reform and also genuinely allowing institutions to function independently. Like at one time, I had to tell President Ruto, please, Mr. President, when you go and stand out there in the public and start abusing judges, you're making a mistake.
All right.
You don't deal with judges that way.
Agreed.
And I'm ready to work with anybody who is willing to allow. Yeah?
Rigiji?
Well, he's a Kenyan. I have no problem with Rigiji.
Yeah. Would you team up with him?
To serve Kenyans?
Yes.
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Or any other. But that decision has to be made, it has to be collegial. Yeah? It has to be collegial because with people who understand and appreciate the enormity of the governance deficit that we have in this country. And remembering also, it's not we Kenyans are feeling it, but you see, it's also being felt by our neighbors within the region, that Kenya has sunk so low. And many of them are telling us, how did you people get here?
We are minutes to time.
Right.
I wonder in 30 seconds if you can tell us, was it worth it? Everything you've been through, was it worth it? You're here now on the other side, but was it worth it? In 10 seconds.
Maybe for the heck of experience, yeah, and say, well, it was worth it.
Okay, for the roller coaster, right? It was worth it.
To be on the roller coaster, yeah.
Are you already in conversation with Rigiji?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, let's hold it there. We are, 15 seconds to the top of the hour, actually less than 10 seconds. Yeah. A big thank you, of course, to Justin Muturi. The last 2 hours have been incredibly eye-opening, incredibly insightful. I think you've been very candid. I do hope that this conversation continues online and that we are able to get more of it. But thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Thank you to the fixers. You've been as much a part of this conversation as we have, and we really do appreciate that. That's the goal. We're on